Some people dream of success while other people get up every morning and make it happen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bits Review. We are back with yet another discussion with the brightest of Bitsians. Every year, BITS Pilani witnesses its students making it to big multinational companies, the top amongst them being Google. Google is consistently chosen as the best workplace in the world, and all techies around the globe would love to be a part of this amazing and innovative organization. Today, we have with us not one, but four future Google employees. These four computer science students not only dreamt of working with such a great corporate, but also made their dream come true. I'd like to welcome Tushar Garg, Minu Raji, Aniket Jain, and Preetika Verma. We're really happy to have you over here. Today they're here with us to discuss their journey and to assist us with the first-hand insights about the world of computer science, internships, placements, and preparations. First of all, thanks for joining us, and I'm sure you all have an extremely busy schedule, and so I really appreciate you for your time. My name is Adya Shukla, and I, along with my friend Shivangi Pachori, will be hosting this session. And so, hello, how are you all doing?
Hi Adya, I'm doing great. Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, sure. Tushar, go
I was saying hi.
ahead. Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to start this discussion without any further ado. Let us begin with the initial part of your journey. So all four of you are pursuing bachelor's in computer science here at BITS. So I want to know whether you were always sure, like since your school days, that you have a knack for computers and coding, or is it something that you gradually realized and you chose this stream because of the opportunities it comes with, and obviously it's the most popular stream to do a BTech in. So which way was it? And also tell us what sparked your interest in this particular field, and when did you seriously started working towards your aim?
Yeah, so I think for me it started with my class 12. Like I took computer science as a subject in my class 12, and from there I started doing coding. That was the first time that I was doing it, and that really sparked my interest till then. And as you said, this is one of the streams that people usually, are the one hot favorite for all of the engineer students. And I was actually a little disappointed by that fact, because the cutoffs are so high and the competition is high. I was like, why do I have an interest in this only? So yeah, there was an interest factor for me. That's how things got started, and I was sure about this thing that whichever college I'm going to get in, I of course want to pursue computer science.
I'll add on to that, but I can't really relate to Tushar because I didn't start programming till I was inside college. I just really like problem solving, and yeah, I think there are definite similarities between coding and stuff that we did in 11th and 12th regarding the abstract stuff, not the exact subjects that we did. But yeah, I realized that I didn't really want to get into other streams like electronics or mechanical. So computer science seemed the most lucrative option for me. So that's why I went into it. No particular interest before getting into it. But after I got into it, I definitely realized that this was an awesome field and there were lots of areas to explore. And I really liked coding as well.
So, like to add on to that, in my case, it was completely different. Like, till the end of my 12th grade, I was very sure that I should do chemical engineering. And even after taking up my MSc degree in chemistry, that was the plan to go with chemistry and chemical engineering. But then it was like towards the mid of my first semester that I realized that maybe I'm not very much suited for the subjects that chemical engineering comprises of. And it was at that point that I wanted to take up something, that didn't involve much physics. So like computer science was the best option for me. So that's my story.
I had been interested in computer science before college, but it was only at the end of my second year that I decided that this is what I finally wanted to do. And some part of that was because of a few technical clubs that I had been a part of, ACM and MLSA, and I had also enjoyed some of my CDCs like OOP and Disco. So yeah, so that was why I finally decided to go for tech.
All right. So let us move to the most awaited part. How did it all happen? If I'm not wrong, the entire interview process of Google begins with an initial screening test, which is followed by around 2 rounds of interviews. So please tell us, how was your experience in every stage of your recruitment process, and take us through that journey of your recruitment process, and how did you prepare for each stage, and how was the entire experience for you? And we would love to hear from all of you, so you can take turns and answer.
For me, like basically, first is the screening, as you said. So we had to just go through the questions, the online coding test, along with sharing our resume, and then there was 2 technical interviews. Usually, the one is followed by the other, and there we had basically a lot of questions where you had to code and show them and show the working and explain that how we are making a solution. So yeah, for me, that's like the complete process. But a fun fact about that, the day that it was going on, and I was just after my first interview, they usually get back to you with a mail that whether you cleared for the second round or not. And there is no specifically negative rejection. You either get that mail or you do not. So I have heard we were on a group, and I had heard from my batchmates that they were getting in 5 minutes. I was like looking at my clock, it was already 7 minutes, and I was like, okay, I did blow up my chance. But it then came. So yeah, and now I was, of course, I bagged it. So yeah.
How were the 2 rounds of interview? Did you feel confident after giving the rounds, and how was that experience?
Yeah, the experience was good for me, as in the interviewers were good. They were helping out, and there's actually a great saying that you should think out loud. So that really worked out for me, and the interviewer was really dropping off a lot of hints that I catched upon. So yeah, it was really nice.
It was definitely similar regarding the second interview mail. Like I also remember waiting a lot, and I think this is a bit common. Like some people just get those mails late because of the HR process is a bit scuffed for different people. But yeah, I definitely remember that tension of not getting a mail, especially because in my first interview I didn't really solve the question completely. But the main part about these interviews is that you really need to show the interviewer that you know how to approach these problems and how to solve these problems rather than actually solving the problem, right? So I think I approached it in a way that he liked, and yeah, he was really helpful too. So I guess I got the second interview chance. One abnormal thing that did happen to me was that my second interviewer was a no-show. So my interviews happened to schedule like at 1:30 p.m. I think, and yeah, so he didn't show up. So my interview was pushed off to like 2:15, and then the third interviewer came, I guess. And yeah, that guy was really nice. We connected a lot, and yeah, I think he was rather impressed by me, which is why I got the internship despite the first interview. As for the screening test, when we first got the screening test, we were hoping for some easy questions because that's what we heard that we were like these generally tests were about, not code forces, like not competitive coding test level of question. But yeah, the level of questions was really high, so there was a bit of uncertainty about how large the cutoff was going to be, basically. Yeah, but I think CGPA and your branch played a major role in that cutoff.
Yeah, so the first interview had been pretty simple for, like, it was a very easy problem, so I was sure that I would be getting called for the second interview. The second one was a little tough, and for both of them I had spent around 20 minutes talking about the solution, and the rest of the time was coding and follow-up questions and and the discussion on time complexity. And they don't actually run your code; they use Google Docs.
Yeah. I read it somewhere that somebody had written about it that they were usually practicing on certain apps, and then they had to switch to Google Docs to write it. So they were kind of dependent on those applications to run the code, and then when you had to do it in the Google Doc, it was rather difficult.
So you've all just mentioned various rounds that you had been through, and getting good results definitely depends on good preparation. You need to be thoroughly prepared for getting good results. And in today's world, we have access to a lot of online resources and websites for almost everything. Can you all please tell us what all resources did you use for your preparation, and what are the topics in your opinion which you consider are important for that preparation?
Yeah, so I think for me it was basically I started with the preparation about 2.5 months before the internship season began, and I did mostly interview bit. I mean, I heard a interview by another, I heard an interview by another senior of us, and she said that she gave pointers and I had listed them. So she said that she did interview bits, so I just followed it religiously. But having said that, I think any platform is good enough if you're just following it and you're not just switching in between. And I was also reading a couple of articles on Geeks for Geeks for brushing up my topics, but I was following interview bit.
Yep. So I think my experience will not be very similar to a lot of people, because as soon as I got into college, I was basically recruited into the competitive department of coding club, and yeah, I really enjoyed competitive coding from the beginning. So I really put a lot of time in it, even in the first 2 years before the internship season was even closed. So I think the basics were rather clear for me. The problem was that the questions that are asked generally in the coding interviews and the coding rounds are not similar. They might have different focuses than the questions they ask on Code Forces and these competitive websites, right? So I had to go through interview bit also as well, because you don't really focus on linked lists and stuff in competitive coding, right? So yep, I focused on interview bit, and after I got selected in the coding rounds, I think the most important part is to have a couple of mock interviews so you can really understand what the process for the interviews is like, and yeah, feel confident about yourself if you end up solving the questions inside the mock interview.
In my case also, I had mostly followed interview bit, but before the interview, when we got the announcement regarding the shortlisted candidates, I had also done the Google specific archives in Geeks for Geeks, and I think that's also really helpful.
Yeah, so other than interview bit, after our 1-2, we were sent back home during COVID. So during that time, I had done a lot of competitive coding. I had attempted these bits review contests and Code Forces too. And other than the interview bit, I had completed all the buckets on interview bit, and after that I had done specific questions on trees, graphs, and DP, the lead code hard ones.
So you also mentioned that having a good resume is very important when you're going for these interviews and internships. So how did you prepare your resume, and what are the important things that one should keep in mind when they're preparing their resume?
Yeah, I think I have the very good story about that, because I really changed that complete. If I ever show that resume, the first draft that I made, and finally that what I've submitted, it was I can't even tell how much different it was. So basically, I think whenever you're making your resumes, just get it checked through your seniors, and not your batchmates, through your seniors, because they have a lot of experience of what people catch about and what they're looking for. Some of the quick tips, some of the quick things that I learned while I was preparing these things from my seniors was always mention results. So you need to quantify whatever you are putting in your experience section not just write that what you did, but how it impacted. So and quantifying, as I said, things is very important. Yeah, so like you just need to follow the right approaches and just present it in a right way so that you can catch.
So that means
Yeah, I think Tushar mentioned the most important point, which is just show your resume to your seniors and let them tell you what you did wrong, right? Because they have a lot of experience reading about resumes, even each other's resumes, so really they understand what the problems are. And as for preparation, as in the projects that we did, yeah, we did. I think I did a couple of projects specifically because I wanted to have some experience regarding coding, and yeah, those were the ones I put on my resume. I think you can put study projects that you do in 2-1 or 2-2 as well, and of course your PS1 is your main work experience. So that's mostly it.
Yeah. So PU has a session on resume building, and for on-campus applications, you'll mostly be using the superset format. And they have a few speakers who tell you in detail about everything that you need to write. So that session was very helpful for me.
Okay, all right. Since we are still talking about resume, I want you guys to enlighten me about the significance of CGPA in bagging a good internship. And since I was going through your LinkedIn profiles, a perfect 10 CGPA flashed in front of my eyes. So when I opened Tushar's page, so not gonna lie, for a second I was spellbound because it's something I've only heard of. One brilliant Vitsian got a 10 CGPA, and actually coming across something like that, it just blows my mind. So, what secret ingredients did you put into the preparation of college exams?
Yes, so I think this question is bundled with two questions in itself. So one thing is how much CGPA matters for these internships and all such things. So I think on paper there is nothing like that. There is only just a benchmark like a 7+ or just to clear the cutoffs. But what I've felt going through the process is it actually plays a role while they're shortlisting you. I mean, if you see all four of us, I think we all have very good GPAs, and that itself, tells something about how they are shortlisting candidates and things. And taking the next question, I think it's it's something that when I look upon, I think it's a great thing for me. And for college preparation, I think I don't do much, but I just always start with the exam approach. So I always look in the starting of the semester, I go through the exams of what kind of questions are being asked, and just whenever the topics are being told, I just see that, okay, can I handle those questions or should I change my approach? So I think a lot of people are just going through that one night before the exam, and I think that's the thing that I usually don't do. By the time we are in the exams, I already know what kind of pattern we are having. So that's something that I follow.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to stop studying last moment and divide my workload throughout the year. So anyways, I have massive respect for you guys, and we really look up to you. So moving ahead, another question for you. You all were pursuing a computer science degree, and so definitely the core curriculum that you have is sufficient, and it covers most of the part that is required for cracking the DSA and coding rounds. You even have courses like computer networks, object-oriented programming, SQL, and other courses, which definitely give you an edge over somebody who hasn't studied those courses. For instance, someone who is pursuing EEE or ENI. So for students from other streams, how difficult is it for them to go out of the way and learn these subjects and try to get at par with their fellow CS graduates?
So I think for interviews at least, so the topics other than DSA, like networks and right? So I think most most interviews won't mind if you're a triple E student and you say that you haven't actually studied networks or like computer architecture or some other operating systems course, because yeah, like they also understand the requirements of your degree and they don't really mind it unless it's some specific company that really requires that kind of knowledge. Like I think Cisco asked networks questions, and yeah, some specific companies require these kinds of knowledges, but other than that, I don't think it's a main requirement. As for DSA, yes, DSA as a course is actually important to solving these kinds of questions, but ultimately you do need to practice, and I think that it's not too big of a leap to just practice on yourself instead of with yourself instead of studying a course in text, right?
You can also look at the basic questions, the commonly asked questions on Geeks for Geeks, maybe for OOP, like, because I feel that OOP is the most important among the other courses other than DSA.
So they can probably find most of the work with past years and do courses which usually cover such common questions. And I guess there is not much need of taking CS electives as such.
I think it's definitely important for, like, you need, it's kind of important to mention these courses on your resume. So I think most IEEE people still do take these electives. But yeah, in regards of cracking the intern season or the placement season, I think it doesn't matter much what kind of courses you've taken.
Could you now tell us a little bit about your summer internships? Like from the screening test, could you tell us a few technical questions and how the two interview rounds were different from each other? What all divisions were you working in, and what projects did you handle, if you could reveal them?
Yeah, so for me, it was basically I was working with the cloud, and under that I was working with a team of backup DR storage. And Google recently, acquired just 2 to 3 years back. They acquired a startup-based product, which was ActiveView. So it was basically a backup solution for all the different databases. And in that, I had to do a security project. Basically, I had to implement a public key infrastructure for the connection of the ActiveView products with the third-party servers, so that we could claim that yes, the third-party servers are someone who they are telling to me. So it was basically implementing all such security procedures and necessary.
How did you find the two interviews different from each other when you were appearing for your internship?
I think like the interviews were not different in a lot of sense. Like there were technical questions in both of them, and both of them were on the similar pattern. So we had one question, and then there was a follow-up, and followed by the last segment, where we could ask something back. So yeah, I guess it was majorly because like the two interviews are scheduled just to make sure that the candidate is like there is enough evidence on your packet that yes, you have the technical proficiency. And like I didn't find much difference in difficulty levels as well. Like you might have different experiences, but yeah, that's
yeah, I think that's true. The general structure remains the same, but any differences that arise in between the interviews is largely because of the difference in interviewers. Like some interviewers like to just go directly for the questions, some interviewers would like to talk to you and get an intro from you. And yeah, I think a lot of it is dependent on luck on what kind of interview you get.
Could you tell us briefly about your project?
So I was also under Google Cloud. I think all 4 of us had a Google Cloud project only. So I was under the Cloud SQL team, which is basically a managed database server. So basically, if you know anything about databases, you would know that there are a lot of considerations regarding the backend, right? Like how to scale up the database and how to manage the servers and so on. So what Google Cloud SQL provides is a completely managed database. So you only have to use the database and you don't have to worry about all of the management problems. Right, so I was under that team specifically for the Postgres database, which is like quickly becoming one of the most popular open source database variants available, right? And so what my particular project was about is was about integrating basically Google Cloud Functions and other cloud services that we had available inside Cloud SQL, so users could directly use these services using SQL queries. In terms of the internship, I guess the team was pretty nice because my mentor and my co-hosts were rather helpful, and the internship was really great.
I would also like to know, how should one go about if they wish to get a PPO from a company like Google? So how do you go about it? What's the process like?
So what they do is they have for each intern they have an internship conversion recruiter, right, which basically manages your conversion process and tells you if you got selected or not for the PPO. And so for Google specifically, there weren't any interviews scheduled. We just had to do our work, and our work would speak for itself, kind of. So in the end, we had to prepare a document which outlined all of the work that we did and the experience that we had. And the major factor in determining whether we got an offer or not, I think, was the feedback from our posts and how positive it was, basically.
Yeah, like there were 4 to 5 parameters for rating, like technical problem solving. And this was actually the first year in which they gave the PPO results before our internship ended, because usually since the past few years, Google takes 2 to 3 weeks and students have to sit for the placements. But this time they decided to release it early. Yeah, and I would also like to add one thing, like not just for Google, but for PPO of any company. I feel that we should all be prepared for placements, because there could be n number of reasons that something might go wrong. Like even simple things that that they do not have funds, and the recession in US right now. So like it's not just the work you do, but also if the company has seats or not. So I would advise everybody to be prepared for placements, because it gets very scary at the end, and I had been very scared.
Like regarding forms, I guess you had fill a form stating when is your when is your graduation date, what is your preferred location, what is your preferred coding language, and some basic stuff like that. Apart from that, mostly it was dependent on the feedback of your mentors.
I'm sure it will help a lot of people. So Google is one of the most prestigious companies and also a dream place for a lot of students. Could you share your work experience? Like, what was it like working with Google in the offices and everything?
I think we really lose out on this opportunity to work in Google offices. We all did a remote internship this time. Like it was planned to be internship on-site internship, but it wasn't. We were not able to go to like they were extra precautions. So, but still, I guess we all had a great experience. And one thing that we really talk about Google is their work-life balance, and I really felt it. So it was not all about work. We really had a lot of sessions where people are helping us doing yoga and dancing and cooking and every kind of you'll find every kind of a class there where you can join and hop on and do whatever you want to do. And there were a lot of other pretty fun sessions as well. So yeah, like it was really good. The culture is extremely amazing. There is a complete lingo going on over there, which is very internal to the company, and it's very nice for me.
So I guess I'll talk about my experience. So my team is basically like so they've only recently started recruiting in India. So the thing was like they had 20 or so people from the US and only 3 people from India, one of which was my co-host, and my host or my main manager was in the US, right? So I had to adjust the timings a bit. Initially, I thought that it would be a 9 to 5 work kind of thing. So I even corrected my sleep schedule and something for the first few days. But ultimately, we had to have meetings between 9 to 12 p.m. at night. So that was. So I think it boosted my productivity a bit because I could work in the night completely fine, and I could schedule these meetings whenever I wanted to. And the people were really helpful. I think one of the things that I like most about Google is that you could, if they're working and if they're in office, you could message anybody about anything, even if you've never talked to them before, and they would, like, I messaged someone who had a similar problem to myself, right, who had faced a similar problem to myself in the previous month or so, and yeah, he just instantly messaged me regarding the solution and what he felt were the alternatives to that. And I think that really like affected me of how easy it was to just get these solutions, because Google is a large company, so chances are if you're solving a problem, somebody else has already solved it.
Like, the other good thing about our experience was they had given us weekly expectations. Like, they had prepared a timeline and given us the doc before we had started, so to make sure that there wasn't any mismatch of expectations. So I thought that was very helpful for the project, so like we could get all our submissions ready in time.
Yeah, I mean, a very unconventional type of work environment. And that kind of makes me want to join Google. I mean, I was looking at this office tour videos of Google, and I was so fascinated by those incredible venues that you have over there.
Yeah, we missed out on those as well. Like we couldn't really go there, so we wanted.
Yeah, we are also seeing those videos.